volume is working. I know I had some issues yesterday where the sound was not working. If you guys can hear me, go 5 minutes and people are like, we can't hear you. So, yes? Okay, wonderful. Let's wait till Joshua jumps on. We're going to, for those who don't know who Joshua Coleman is, he is oh, hi, Lyra's on. He is, well, very talented, father of he's done videography before. That was kind of what he would do for work in the past. And he has dedicated the bulk of his time in the past several years to advocate against mandates and bills like this. He lives in California, and I'm kind of filling in space right now because I'm waiting for him to join in because it just sounds so much better coming from him. But we're going to talk a little bit about the demonstration over the weekend at the San Diego International Comic-Con and, get into other creative ideas and ways that you guys, wherever you're at, can take on the reins too. So hopefully, there we go. I believe that he is on right now. There we go.
Shoot. Oh, okay. Now I think I can hear you.
Okay, I can hear you. You guys good? Can hear both of us? I'm just gonna. I had to take my headphones off because it wasn't working, but now we're good.
Right on.
Right on. Hi.
Hey there. Good to see you.
I know. For those who didn't catch Joshua's interview with InfoWars, I believe it's still up on at least the We Are Joshua Coleman page on Facebook, right?
It is, and it's amazing that it's only got like 5,000 views. Something like that should have been at like 100, 200,000 by now. But it's like, I think between my shadow banning and InfoWars' shadow banning, nobody's seeing it.
Yeah, no, it's all pretty censored. I was shocked too because I shared it, and I shared it on my Facebook, and it took like 10 minutes. So I nudged Jeff. I'm going, did you even see this in your newsfeed? So he had to go through his newsfeed, and he obviously follows me. And I was like, he goes, no, but I'm seeing your other post. I'm seeing like 2 memes you posted. So I go click on it, go on my actual page. So he had to go on my actual page and then see, and then he liked it. And then it just, yeah, you're definitely getting an interesting form of shadow banning there on the interwebs. But, well, yeah. Okay, Saturday, what a trip.
Man, that was fun.
It was fun. It was fun for a bunch of us who, seeing what they went through too. I did the photography when I was there, but you would think, oh my gosh, these people are having like the worst day ever behind these, putting themselves in positions like this. Why don't you get into a little bit of how you got into this? What clicked with you where you said, I'm going to be that guy that just stands alone in the middle of a crowd and holds up a sign like this that's thought-provoking?
Well, I've been trying to think about, it's just very frustrating, the whole vaccine fight, because if you know just a few basic facts, you're going to be against any kind of mandates or, removing any exemptions. So but people have no education, so that's the frustrating thing. So it's like, how do we educate people? How do we let them know why they should be protecting these rights? And I keep looking at PETA and their success, and I keep thinking about what they did with the fur coats thing. When I grew up, people wore fur coats in public, and they started, like, they would have one activist go out with a bucket of blood, I think it was just ink, throw it on somebody with a fur, and they were making, wow, that's one individual with probably $20 worth of materials, and they're commanding media attention. So I thought, I've been thinking, like, how do we do that? How can we do that in our community? And so I started doing the giant signs. and just I've been sort of playing with that over the last few years at the Women's March, at the Science March, at Comic-Con last year, and then it just really seemed like a ripe opportunity. Like I see these rallies, I see these protests that our people are doing, and they're typically at the Capitol. There's a lot of small signs. A lot of the signs you don't even know what they're talking about necessarily. Somebody might have a sign that says "First, do no harm." Well, if that's the only sign somebody sees, they're not going to know what they're talking about. So, and then they're doing these protests in places where they're lucky to be seen by 500 people. And so I've been thinking, like, we've got so many activists right now, so many people, well-intentioned people, who are going out there, but they're not really being utilized. They're not being efficient. They're not being effective. So I've been trying to, like, let's mess around. Let's see what we can do here. And that's where this kind of came out of, like, this whole idea of let's boil down the messages. Let's get them down to 5 to 8 words on the biggest signs we can get on the regulation sticks, and go out there and, with the Disneyland thing, we had 14 people with signs, but pretty much everybody who went into the park saw us. And, all we had to do was cover the entrances. So that's amazing to me, that with very few people, you can get the word out to 50, 70, 80,000 people in just a few hours. So I'm kind of obsessing with that idea, like of being efficient, effective, hitting the streets. And of course, I'm also hitting the streets because I'm being shadow banned so much. They can't stop me out there. And really, as I've been doing this, now I'm sitting here going, I probably should have been doing more of this, because we put out these videos and these memes and stuff, but we're only hitting so many people. And I'm sure you experienced out there when you were there that we're getting out to people that have not heard any of this stuff before. We're hitting fresh fish.
Exactly.
So I think that's
commentary. You had people going, "Wait, what do you mean you can't sue vaccine manufacturer?" Like the dumbest things, most simple things, or actually when you got assaulted a bit over a guy who just did not believe that there was aborted fetal cell in vaccines.
Mm-hmm.
How's your shoulder? How's your equipment since that?
Oh, my equipment, I have to get like new bolts for it now, and then it's weird because there's like these little screws that you just can't find anywhere, so it's a little bit annoying. Right. And then the police didn't even want to even like deal with the situation. It was aggravating. But I'm okay.
Well, they first wanted to take your equipment, and you're like, dude, I'm in the middle of all this, I'm not giving this to you. Crazy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that you pointed that out, because after all of this is said and done, they're going to wish, all these big tech companies that are shadow banning, that are doing the censoring, they're going to wish that they kept us at home in front of our keyboards, just on our phones, and now look what it's forcing us to do. And there's so many different ways to advocate, right? Like I'm constantly showing out silent advocacy, but I love what you said, that if you're planning on standing out in a space, make it as effective as possible. It's already going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money. And you got to be in a place where these people are going to see this. We need to wake up more people, more, Joshua Colemans out there that haven't gotten that fire lit underneath them yet. And so, yeah, I just think that going into now the next thing, a lot of people are asking, well, how do we get involved? How do we get involved? How do we know of an event like this taking place? Because the beauty of the events that you orchestrate are that they're well kept. You don't announce them. They're not something that because then all the more you're going to get trolled. You probably already have people that watch what you do. So let's go into now your new website that you're launching and how people can get involved.
So it's called V is for Vaccine. So it's visforvaccine.com. So it's sort of like A is for Apple, V is for Vaccine. And it's almost like we're saying, let's do the kindergarten level of vaccine education, just the very basics. So many of us have been out there screaming about autism and screaming about all, toxins and toxic overload and all these things to the general public. And I'm starting to feel like And I'm one of them. I've been doing it too. I'm starting to feel like we're trying to teach calculus to somebody who doesn't understand basic math. So like the whole idea is just like let's boil it down. V is for vaccine. Let's start at the beginning. And it's just how to do these events. I'm making the signs available for people to download and they can go print on their own. The flyers. So the flyers, I don't have any flyers in here. But the flyers look like we had 10 different flyers, and they matched each sign that we had. So on one side of the flyer, it looked just like the sign, and the other side of the flyer, it has like more detail about that particular fact, and at the bottom, a QR code that they could scan to go to the source to verify that fact. So like a lot of people are saying, come to my website and I'll educate you. We're not, we're educating them on the spot. So it'll have all the materials to download. It'll have our guidelines and protocol. We do have very specific guidelines and protocols. If you've seen our videos, you never see anybody on their phones. They're not on their phones. They're usually not chit-chatting. They're out there, standing there very passionately, holding their sign. And we don't argue with people. And see, that's another thing. Besides just trying to avoid the trolls, you have to also avoid the people in your community that maybe can't tolerate somebody in their face telling them, flipping, the middle finger or pointing in their eye or telling them that they don't think that their child's vaccine injury is a vaccine injury. They think that they dropped them on their head. They can get pretty ugly, and it's not for everybody. If you have a temper, if you can't keep it together, you shouldn't be doing this, and that's fine. Because those people can contribute too. They can help, like buy materials. But it's just the website. It's a free site. It's just very boiled down how to do things like this, and you can theme them or not theme them. And I certainly think that's going to be a struggle for me to say, because I think the theming is fun, but it's not always going to be appropriate. And we have to do the right theming for the right times. I think I would like the majority of them to not be themed. And, and certainly it depends on your money situation. Like, I would not go take my Star Wars sign and go to the state fair because I think it would just be weird and people would be confused. We had the Star Wars signs because we were at the opening of Galaxy's Edge. And V for Vendetta, I think that could actually work a little bit more often, but we were at Comic-Con and there were people there dressed like V for Vendetta. But yeah, the site is called visforvaccine.com. It's not completely up there yet. We're going to have everything up hopefully within the next 4 or 5 days. Tutorials on how to build the signs and print your own signs and print your flyers.
So the key word there, you guys, it's free. It's not like you're going to have to go to this website. You don't have to pay Josh. You're not going to have to pay anybody. You're going to be able to download these things. There's going to be instruction on, I guess, best quality ways to get these printed out. I went downstairs as you were talking to pick up what some of these looked like. So these were the little cards that all of the activists had. And so if you were holding up a sign that says vaccine mandates violate bodily autonomy, which is really hard to argue, okay, especially if you are pro-choice, you hand this to somebody, each person had like 50 to 100 of these in their pouch or?
That's right, 50 each.
50 each. And so then you hand this to somebody and on the back, it's got information, it's got the QR reader and literally tinyurl.com/vax sources. And these are sources to actual like .gov sites. So it's really hard for that person. Like if you're demonstrating and you just don't have any time, here you go. Here you go, buddy. And then here was another one. U.S. law classifies vaccines as unavoidably unsafe. This nobody can argue. You can't argue it. That's literally what the Supreme Court classified them as in 2011. You can scan this for reference. It was brilliant. It was so well done. And you're saying that all of this kind of stuff too, people can print off and do this.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole thing. Go print your materials and go do it, And the great thing about it, I think the biggest expense is the signs, and they could cost anywhere from $50 to $100 depending on where you get them printed at. If you really search, you can find a good place that can do it for cheap. But after you print your sign, if it's not themed, you can use that anytime. You can go out all the time. So I'm really excited to see people have these all over the country, possibly other countries. I can see Australia and the UK joining in as well. And then, it's so easy. Just like, hey, let's go out.
Now your options are endless. I had a lot of people commenting in with, had we known, we would have had, like, there's a mom on there that said, had I known of this event and I'm in San Diego, I would have had like 20 parents join in. And it's like, that's great and all, but what is stopping you now? At this
Right.
point now, if you know of 20 other parents that would have participated in something like this, you don't have to wait. You can look at every city, especially major cities, have events going on. Okay. I mean, Vegas, we are like, there's a convention every weekend, you know, your options are kind of endless. And you also, if you are only, because we know that Pharma does not fund our movement as the media is claiming. We all had to spend our own money to get down there. We all had to spend to print the signs, to get the pamphlets. So if your budget yearly is only a set amount to advocate, how can you use that amount in like the most effective, creative way possible? And I bet people that are watching right now that are in other parts of the world, other parts of America, you already know of an event coming up in your town that, hey, this is an event that's going to bring in a lot of people. It could be like a farmer's market, you know? But now you're going to have the, Lyra's like, yeah, the Russians have paid for all this. The Russians paid for all of this. Oh, and her name is Natalia. She must be a, but yeah, I love that. What else can people expect then from the website for?
Well, we'll also have an event page, because we want to help, it sounds like we missed some San Diego people. We did our best. I tried to talk to the San Diego people out there. I tried to, swoop up as many activists as I could, but obviously we missed them. So we will have an event page. And what I'm picturing in my mind is all 50 states being listed. And so, for instance, you might see Nevada, and under Nevada it might say Las Vegas. And then you click Las Vegas, and then you go to there, and there might be details about the event, or maybe it's just an email, I mean, it just depends on how secretive and how private you guys want to make it. And then you reach out to that person, and they vet you or whatever they need to do, and then they can include that person. But that way we can really coordinate. And then, so people can be organizers. Not everybody can organize this. It can be difficult. It was really, really tough, and I can tell you right now, looking back with this last one, Olivia and I should have included more people in organizing at least on a day. For me to think I could shoot video and organize on the day was far from realistic. But yeah, so even if you're not the type that would be a good organizer, but you're capable of holding a stick and standing, yeah, you can just jump on and see what events are going on in your city and join in.
And once again, if you are running into people that are still too afraid to do that, go out there, unmasked, holding up a sign, there are other ways they can help. They can find other people too. They can help donate for printing, because printing is not cheap. Printing any of this stuff is just not cheap. So there's really no excuse. You can be involved. You could be involved. You know what? What would have been nice if we had volunteers in San Diego who just ran around delivering water or some kind of snack to these activists who weren't allowed to be on their phones, and like stuff like that. Like, I mean, you could be just that guy in the shadows, but you're still helping, and you're still being a big help to the movement for the person that is willing to stand out there with the sign. So
it's a necessity. We need those people. We need them. And I felt weird. I had talked to a couple people, and I was like, well, it's not the most glorious job, but we need it so bad. We need people running around, making sure everybody's okay, and making sure people have water. But we did have a lot of that. We had a lot of people that said, I can't make it. I'm out of town. Let me give you $50. Let me contribute $100. And so that money usually it went towards people who couldn't afford to pay. It was about $100 buy-in, for the sign, for the flyers, for the mask. We bought about 50 capes and hats. We couldn't quite afford to buy all 100. And so, but yeah, like so many people pitched in money, and then a big donor actually even gave us even more, and it was just really helpful. And yeah, so that was nice.
So when you say that there's also set guidelines, I want you to maybe be a little bit more specific on that, in that, it's kind of, your name is kind of going to be attached to this. You can look at an event and you can say, that looks like a Joshua Coleman orchestrated event. Or you can look at an event
Right.
and be like, what was going on here? What do you mean also by that there's going to be guidelines into doing this? Because you also don't want someone else just downloading a bunch of stuff and then they do just this insanely terrible job and then they're like, Joshua Coleman. Like,
Right,
how are you
right.
going to protect your name too and your.
Right. Well, we're also going to want to celebrate anybody who's doing a Vias for Vaccine event, and so we will have a celebration page. But we do expect people to follow the guidelines, and then it can be Vias for Vaccine approved or certified or whatever we'll do. But things like staying off the telephone while they're out there holding the sign, not arguing with people, things like also like keeping the. When you're having a conversation with somebody, keeping it to 3 different truths and not going beyond that. We have so much information. We've all been falling down this rabbit hole for so long that I think it's really easy to sit there and unload a ton of stuff on somebody, and it's just too much. I think the average person can't take that much. So that's another thing. We try to stick to 3 things. I kind of feel like asking people to stay away from the topic of autism and vaccines. I think it's confusing for people. If you pay attention to the other side and you see, they love to make that argument for us. That's the only argument they typically make for us, and they stay away from all these other things. So that makes me think maybe that's not the best argument. So let's just not go there.
Yeah, and I love that you did mention this on InfoWars as well, but there was no sign that we held up that said anything to do with the word autism. But the indoctrination that you pointed out and what the media has done to people was so thick in the air, because you had people that could look at a sign that says something as simple as U.S. law classifies vaccines as unavoidably unsafe and yell out, vaccines don't cause autism, you blank, 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 blank. And you're going, dude, no, I didn't even say that. Like,
right.
But it shows you like kind of the depths of the IQ situation that we're dealing with here out in public.
Yeah, it is brainwashing. When somebody feels so passionately about something they know very, very little about, that's brainwashing, and that's what it is. And we got to crack through that. But these are all these things, all these truths. They're things that they never talk about on the news. They never talk about, like, vaccines. They can hurt and kill you. They don't talk about the manufacturers are exempt from liability. They don't talk about the tripling of the schedule. They don't talk about them being that they're not being placebo safety tested. So it's like, okay, there's a reason why you're not talking about that, and so we are.
Exactly. Yeah, and your passion is going to continue, and I know you're going to try. You mentioned a couple times you're going to try to slow down a little bit with the. But who knows what that means?
Right. Yeah. I mean, I'm trying to work on other things too. I basically shot a movie on the Vaxxed tour, so I need to jump back on that. Yeah. And this is not going to be my big thing. I just I don't want to be. I love this, and I'm really just trying to show like a better way of doing this, and I'd like to pop out like a couple times a year and do my own thing. I came up with an idea last night that it was so good. My heart's been in my throat ever since, because it's an intensity and a level like I'm like, oh my gosh, is this really a good idea? I'll have to tell you about that later.
Right.
But yeah.
For you to stand, you guys, if you're not following him, please make sure you're following Joshua Coleman. You do the Lone Ranger stuff a lot. You've done it a lot. To stand in the middle of a woman's march where they are yelling about pro-choice, my body, my choice, all of that. And what did your sign say, literally?
It said, vaccine mandates violate women's choice, which it does. And they didn't like that. And they were, the interesting thing is actually at the Women's March, I was getting like a fair amount of praise. It was like confusion or praise until the promoters saw me and they remembered me from the last science march that they had held. And they freaked out and they sent people over to start crowding me and blocking me. And then all of a sudden everybody turned on me. So it's almost, again, it's that brainwashing. They all were like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, that makes sense. Vaccine mandates violate women's choice. And then, oh, we're not supposed to like this? Okay, now we're mad. But I I'm trying to think out of the box. I mean, I'm obsessed with thinking about this, and I do think we've all been doing this for a long time, and a lot of people are running around in circles doing the same things that we've been doing, and it's like, okay, we need to do something different. We need to change it up and make it interesting, and that's what I'm trying to do.
Exactly. Right. So, well, great. I'm so glad that you were able to jump on here and do the chat. And for those who don't know, Joshua, if you don't mind, can you give us a little bit of a backstory on what just catapulted this, what made you get on the Vax tour, and what kind of opened up your eyes to everything? Just so people understand, you're not just some guy with video background who's like, I'm going to get involved in this anti-vax movement.
Right. Yeah. So I didn't really know too much about vaccines, going back, 7, 8 years, 9 years. I had seen Jenny McCarthy, J.B. Handley on Larry King, and I believed them. When they were talking about vaccines and autism, I believed them. So then when I had my firstborn, I started to look into it when we thought, okay, we need to have these discussions. Are we going to do them all? Are we going to space them out? I don't think we ever thought about not getting any vaccines. But I started to research, and I was just overwhelmed very, very quickly, and we were confused. And so we unfortunately decided we will do as our pediatrician recommended, and that's what we did. And then my son, at 17 months old, had a vaccine injury. He woke up one day unable to walk, and I took him in, and they gave him an MRI and found out that he had transverse myelitis. And the doctor said, has he been vaccinated recently? And I said, yes, he has. And over time, through testing at Johns Hopkins, we discovered that it indeed was a vaccine injury. Now, had they not told me that, I don't know if I would have ever researched and come to that conclusion on my own. And then I learned that you have to become an advocate for your child. We had to start fighting for the treatments that were appropriate for that, because not everybody has the right education in the medical field. It was a huge awakening for me, but they told me, they said it's 1 in a million. What happened to your kid? It's just 1 in a million, but it happened to your child so that all the other kids could live. And I believed them, and I grew up watching Star Trek. I understood the concept of the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. It made sense to me, and so I thought, okay. I mean, it was awful and really hard, but I said, okay. But the thing that really opened my eyes over the next few years, because of course the first 2 years I was just working very, very hard trying to recover my son and doing everything I could, medically, physical therapy, and all that stuff. But over time, now I have an interest in vaccines, because I know a vaccine harmed my child, and I would read all the articles and watch all the news pieces on vaccines as they came down the pipeline, and I started reading things I knew unequivocally were not true. I didn't have that great of an education, but I knew a few things for sure. And I thought, why is this article saying this? That's not true. And I had to read another article, and I'd read another thing that wasn't true. And so then I started to read more and more, and really I read this letter from a mother. I wish I remembered her name. A letter from a mother, and she had really kind of pointed out a lot of things about the vaccine program. And I went line by line on these points, these very valid points that she made, and I looked them up, and I was like, holy crap, she's totally on point here. And then I started to tumble down the rabbit hole. I didn't realize there was a fight going on. I went to a screening of Trace Amounts that I found out about, a sold-out screening of Trace Amounts. I found out about last minute and just showed up, and they got me in to the screening, and I was blown away. The film was great. I really thought it was going to be sensational, like a sensational film. I wasn't expecting anything good, and I was like, whoa. Just completely blown away, and I had met some really great activists that day. Laura Hayes, who's a great activist in Sacramento. She's not really on social media, unfortunately, but you can find her stuff like on YouTube speeches and stuff. She's incredible, really smart gal. And then I met Brian Hooker and Eric Gladen, the filmmaker, and and all the people in the audience, all the people that showed up to that screening had children with vaccine injuries, and so it was really the first time I'd been around other people like me. I don't think I'd ever really talked to another parent who had a child with a vaccine injury, and it was like almost the whole theater. and I couldn't leave. I just really couldn't leave the screening that day. I was like, wow, I found my people, and I stuck around and had these great conversations. And I woke up the next morning and I did my own screening because Trace Amounts was a gather screening where you could create your own, and you gather enough people to come to the screening, and it becomes something at your local theater. And I guess I would almost say that's almost like the beginning of it for me. And then Laura Hayes, who I had met, and I was now on this email list, she asked me to testify at SB 277 and tell my story. And I remember telling her, well, like, I don't know about pulling the boys out of school. Like, I really didn't understand how important it was, and what an honor it was to even be asked to do something like that. And it also was a bit scary to me because at this point I'd been arguing online with trolls, about vaccine information, vaccine facts. But I hadn't really been out, and I saw the hate, and I was like, oh boy. But really, it was that feeling of, it was like that Judas Iscariot moment where I went, how do I not fight? How do I not do something? I'm not going to be here. I'm not going to let 277 pass and look back and say, I didn't even try. I didn't even fight against it. So I had to. I felt obligated to. And of course, I also, like, coming from a video background, I was watching all these great videos on YouTube with Andy Wakefield and Suzanne Humphries, and they were epic videos, just extraordinary information, and they weren't being shot well. And I thought, these could be so much more polarizing if they looked well, if they looked nice, and if they sounded nice. And so I thought, okay, well, that's what I can bring to the table. That's how I will help. I'll go out with my camera and start shooting some stuff. So I started off like shooting some speeches at the Capitol, and then I started shooting vaccine panels, and then making my own original things. Laura Hayes had actually pitched me making a video about the senator who authored 277, Senator Richard Pan, and she said that you could point out like his lies. And I remember at the time thinking, ooh, like attack a senator, like what could happen? Like, I was really nervous. It was. Yeah. I was really, really nervous, and so I did it, and it was fine. And of course, I had no idea at the time what that would turn into. Of course, attending those hearings through 277, my hatred for Pan and seeing his lies and him just pushing his agenda clearly for pharmaceutical companies that had him in the pocket was just disgusting to me. And then I started to realize, oh, I have rights. I have a voice. I can say something. I can do these things, and it's legal. And so, Pan was one that I decided like I'd really go after and try to show people, show him for the clown that he is, because he's a really unintelligent. He's just a buffoon. He's a complete buffoon, and I really want to like show that in these videos. And so I had recorded a couple of vaccine injury stories from some activists that I had met in Sacramento, and I had kind of stalked the Vaxxed tour a little bit. So when they first came into California, I just showed up with a couple of cameras. I rented a camera, and I brought my own camera. I came down to Santa Monica, set one up on a tripod. Then I'm running around with a remote camera shooting, and they're kind of looking like, who the heck is this guy, And then I was just so interested. And again, like at that time, the Vaxxed tour, it was only like live broadcasts on a telephone, and I thought, like, I want to shoot this in HD. This is epic. This is the return of Andy Wakefield. This is his comeback. I was just like, this is historic. And so I was shooting these things, and then I was invited to come out and shoot in Compton. And that's when I really, for the first time, I had met Andy Wakefield before, but I hadn't really chatted with him. And then and that Compton screening was amazing because that was the first time Sheila Ely Lewis had spoken. And she gave, it's sort of a famous speech now. She had the get off the bus speech. And we were all kind of like, holy cow. This was a mother with a vaccine-injured child. And nobody knew she was the speaker that she was. But she just killed like the whole room just at energy levels. It was just beautiful. It was this building speech. And then the night ended, and Andy said, I need that footage now, like right now. And I said, well, you got a place for me to stay. And so I went with Andy and stayed at Terry Rossio's house, who's a very famous screenwriter who bought the rights to Andy Wakefield's book. He's also the guy who wrote like the animated film Aladdin. He wrote the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, National Treasure, all kinds of stuff. He's one of the biggest screenwriters in Hollywood. So I stayed there with him and sort of developed a relationship. And then, maybe a few weeks later, I was invited to join the bus tour. And I'm sorry, not the bus tour. Actually, just the Vax tour. There was no bus then.
Yeah.
And Tommy had got me on the phone and said, we need somebody kind of covering the tour, but I want to record these stories. People keep coming up to me at the end of the night with a vaccine injury story, and I want to record them. And so I said, great. And so I came onto the tour. I joined in Utah. This is when we were flying around. And I started recording the stories. I was doing the interviews. So when somebody came up to her with a polarizing story, that she would send them over to me, and then I would record the interview. And we discovered they weren't coming out as emotional as what they had just given to her. And it was like, well, they just saw your story, Polly. They saw your story. They know you. They are empathizing with your story. So, I was like, I think you need to do the interviews. So then she started to do the interviews, and they were really like, it was like in front of these theaters, just outside, like on the pavement. We would do a random interview, and somebody would come up and do 2 or 3 minutes, and they'd tell the story of what happened to their child or what happened to them. And then one day we were in it was Indiana, and it was like a real grassroots movement. So people would pick us up from the airport and drive us somewhere to stay. And so this family picked us up, and we asked them, so why are you involved? And the woman said, because my baby died after vaccines. And we were like, whoa, holy cow. And so we talked about it and said, let's give this family some time. Let's go to their house and let's shoot their interview there. Let's really give these guys some time and hear their story and be able to get the details, as opposed to these things right outside the theater on the pavement, with a crowd of people around. And this was the Bundys, Carrie and Bryce Bundy, and we sat down with them at their house, and they told this story about how their child had died from vaccines, and it's just, the whole thing is just devastating. And afterwards, I edited that video and put it out, and we realized these powerful videos can be even more powerful if we give them the time, if we take before and after photos, videos that they have, and combine them into the video. And then we thought, how do we do more of this? We need to do this. We need to give them time. And so that's where the idea of the Vaxxed bus came up. And so we thought, a mobile bus. We're wasting all this time, all this money flying around. We could spend more time with the parents if we were on a bus. And they got the funding, and we made a bus, and we traveled to, most of the states in the U.S. and started documenting the stories and giving people the time that they needed to express these stories. And so I did that for a while and recorded almost 800 stories. And it's interesting, as a result of that, we've sort of seen people are less afraid to tell their stories. Now that they've seen everybody else do it and they're seeing them go around, now there's people that aren't afraid. And now a lot of people are out doing the same things that we were doing on the Vax bus. They're out finding people who have these stories, and then they're recording those stories and putting them out and circulating them. And they're definitely a threat. You hear Offit and that Chef Boyardee guy, I forget his whatever his name is, that other pro-vaxxer, but they keep talking about the stories that they're BS, but they're getting somewhere, and then they're a huge threat. I've even seen them do like lectures on how to counter the vaccine injury stories, and it's really, since then I've been just kind of exploring and dabbling and making little videos here and there, and I've been harassing the hell out of Senator Pan. And now it's starting to develop into, I'm trying to lead people in a way. I think there are people that are considered leaders, but they're not real leaders. They're more like stars. They're out there that's like, give me money, and I'll go out and fight this for you. So they're really not leading. And I see our people, and these are my people. They're me. They're different versions of me all over the country. And like I said, they're out there. They're running around. They're running around in circles. They're trying really hard, but they're not being effective and efficient. And we don't know. None of us. We're not professionals. We're desperate parents that are just trying to figure out a way to get out to the masses. And not all of us are doing it the right way, or what I see as being the most effective and most efficient way. And so that's sort of what I've been working on lately with V for Vaccine and with these last few demonstrations. Like, let's refocus people and give them a better way of spending their time and their money.
Exactly. And I love that. I love that you're giving people so many different options, because there are a lot of different ways to advocate. And I just more prefer, I mean, if you're going to be going into something that's like a lot of people in a big gathering, you need the proper things too. You need to make sure permits are in place. You need to make sure that that type A personality in the group can be more there to just kind of manage and give them all different, you know, everyone's got a place, is what I'm saying.
Right.
There's something for everybody if you want to be a part of this movement. I think that says a lot, and obviously why these kind of guys are coming out and they have nothing better to do. They can't combat what these stories are doing with something like, I don't know, facts and the truth. They need to do things like censoring. Like you said you had 800 videos on YouTube. I mean, how often do those pop up? Almost never now. You have to like type it in word for word, or it just doesn't even pop up. So,
not even then. No. Like over the last several months. So when I'm in a conversation with somebody that might be talking about fetal cells and they're confused, like I had shot this great interview with it's more of just Marcella Piper Terry really thoroughly explaining what that means. And so what I would do in a conversation was I'd jump on YouTube, put in a few keywords that would pop up, and I would share it. Just the last like month or two, those things don't pop up anymore with the keywords. And I used to be able to put in Paul Offit. With Paul Offit, all the top videos that would come up were our videos. They're the videos with the most views. They are buried. Now it's like all these medical school videos with him that have like 200 views that are all so they have just recently changed this. And so it's every social media. It's YouTube, it's Facebook, everything. They're shadow banning, they're burying everything.
Yeah, it's so true. I like that Olivia is on here. I don't know if she prefers to remain a little bit more, but you guys, she's such a huge part. I know Joshua gets, of course, all the credit, you know, but Olivia is key too in how.
Yeah, she's my partner.
Yeah, how she's helped putting all of this together. So she does an incredible job.
Yeah. A lot of this stuff, we sit here and we go back and forth, and it's such a building and discussing and developing between the two of us that just the other day we were sitting there saying, whose idea was that? How did we come up with that? And wait, you said this, and then I said that, and it's almost like, a meshing of the minds, So at this point, we don't even know where, the head begins and the tail ends.
Exactly. So once again, if you are the type that just prefers to remain a little more anonymous, but with any talents, I've got a lot of friends who dabble in photography too, or they have their own business and they would rather stay behind the camera, or just like how you're in videography. I mean, somebody like Ray who joined in too, like he just goes, oh my gosh, I want to get more involved and use my video skills and help with this movement. There's a spot for you in all of this. You don't have to sit back and wait. You now are going to have just the materials on your own, and you don't have to wait. You don't have to wait for Joshua Coleman to be like, I'm trying to set something up,
Right, every state can do their own thing. Every state, and then what was interesting with this last one, because everybody was wearing a mask, and you can't wear a mask in every state. Most states, there's a few, I think Arizona, and there's a few others that it is illegal to go out and demonstrate with a mask on or protest with a mask on. But there were a few people that said to me, I love this. I can actually go out and do this because I can't normally because I'll get fired. It's not that they're scared. It's that they got to put food on the plate. They got to feed and pay rent for the family, and they don't want to get fired because there's bullies out there. And these people were saying, yay, I can go out. Yeah, I'll put the mask on, and nobody will know it was me, and I won't lose my job. And that was pretty cool.
Yeah, there you go. And take shifts, you could take shifts.
Right.
You could be, Hollywood, there's like people that are in the area with the Man's Chinese Theater like all day long. And if you're going, you know what, I can't do this full time. I got a full-time job. Can I dedicate an hour? Okay, then take shifts with other people. It takes one sign. It takes one person to look at one sign, to take one of these things, to go home, and that seed's been planted. Like you said, the seed was planted for you with just an interview that you saw on TV, but you didn't necessarily say to yourself, oh yeah, no, I'm definitely not vaccinating. It still took, but in with what happened to your son, you constantly thought about, well, you know what, I'm gonna go now and really check in on this. I'm gonna go and take the time to really, that's what it's gonna take. Because a lot of people need to learn in that way. Some people would rather, like me, I'm just thankful. I prefer to learn from other people's stories. I prefer to learn from other people's testimonials. But there's a lot of people out there that just think it could never happen to them, you know, until it does. And so I'm just so appreciative once again for everything that you have put in and all the time you continue to put into this movement, all the time that you dedicate for this. It really means a lot to all of us. So
thank you, and you too. Thank you too. I'm glad we connected at the time that we did. It was just perfect. Everything always seems to be kind of falling into place, like right at the right time. And I met you, and I met Robin and Julie and other people. All, you know, it almost seemed like the perfect time to start doing these types of events.
yeah, and when it's serendipitous like that, you know that it was really meant to be. You know that somebody else
Right.
has a hand in this. That's so. Yeah, awesome. Well, you guys make sure you're following Joshua on here. V is for vaccines.com. Or is it V is for
Vaccine.
Vaccine,
Yes,
sorry.
V is for vaccine. Yeah.
V is for vaccine.com. Keep checking back in. You said that within 5 days it's going to be pretty much.
Yeah, we'll have all the stuff up there. Everything you need to make your own event, yes. And we'll also consult with people too. So if somebody's doing an event, I really would, at least at the very beginning, and maybe always, take a phone call and kind of chat with the person to make sure that everybody's kind of really understanding what these things are and how to execute them.
Yes. Okay, perfect. Wonderful. All right, I'll let you get on with the rest of your afternoon.
Right on.
Really appreciate it once more. Thanks, guys, for watching. I know Rose Henges is going to be coming on in a bit to do a live with all of the nonsense that's happening with her feed. You guys were asking me about Rose, and she's going to come on and do a live in a bit. So, all right, I'll let you go here. I'm going to end this
All
one
right.
and possibly save it. And
Right.
Take
All right,
care,
thank
guys.
you.
Bye.
Yep, see ya.